Keyshawn Davis against Jamaine Ortiz. This is Keyshawn's first fight at 140 pounds. Arguably, along with Nahir Albright, the most athletic fighter he's fought in Jamaine Ortiz. And I'm going to start here. Win or lose, I would like to see Jamaine Ortiz. Every fighter that steps through the ring lets him hang, but I really let him hang in this fight because against Teofimo Lopez, he did enough to hang on that level, but not enough to win. And then down the second half against an older fighter, a great older fighter, in Lomachenko, he coughed up an early lead, and Lomachenko came on strong and beat him too. He hung close in both of those fights, but I
Right.
do think it's fair to say, he could have let it all hang out a little bit more in each of those fights. So win or lose, that's what I would hope for Jamaine Ortiz. But what is your opening thoughts on this fight?
Um, I don't want to hold Lomachenko fight against him too much because that was his first 12-round fight in the
Right,
pros. That's
right.
that's a, that's a hell of a person that fight in your first 12-round fight. But with
Mm-hmm,
this
mm-hmm.
fight, I would I feel like that was the fight where I would agree more with that. He should have let it hang out. I thought he was frustrating Teal the majority of that fight, but then he got real repetitive. He would exit the same way. He didn't really show the kind of offensive versatility in that fight that he needed to show that gap in class. So this fight, it seems like from what he's saying, we'll see what happens in the fight. But from what he's saying that he's going for the knockout. He's going to look to be more aggressive this fight, which I'm not sure if that's a great idea because Keyshawn is. I didn't realize much bigger Keyshawn Davis was than him
Yeah, man.
today.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he goes that route, I look forward to seeing how he does that because however this fight goes for him, he's gonna need to do something different from rounds if it goes that far, rounds 8 to 12, because just circling the ring and being disciplined, it's part of a great game plan. But to beat guys on this level, especially as the B side fighter with no backing behind him, he's gonna need to show that extra bit of quality and not be so predictable to where the opponent, in this case Keyshawn Davis, can start to dominate him on the offensive side and close the fight strong.
It was striking today at the presser at MSG how much bigger Keyshawn looked than Jamaine Ortiz, who was a big lightweight moving up. A kid who carries the weight well and is in good shape, is a good athlete, fast hands, fast feet. And speaking of his feet, I'm curious to see how Keyshawn deals with the movement of Jamaine Ortiz. He has good feet. Everyone you talk to in the sport gives him credit for that immediately. And Davis is, though he's an athletic fighter, obviously in his own right, he has a wide base. Uh,
Correct.
Part of why he's a better puncher than Jamaine Ortiz, but a wide base and actually a little flat-footed, despite being a good athlete with that wide base.
That's why I hear Albright had success punching in between the shots of Keyshawn when they fought.
Right. So, and he does generate more power and leverage than a Jamaine Ortiz in that. And I am curious to see that. And then also from a mental aspect, Keyshawn knocked out Barenchik to win his first title last year. And then, what happened with the De Los Santos fight, blowing weight, the stuff in the locker room with Albright thereafter.
Yep.
And you do got to wonder about his mentality heading into this fight. And he's been calling out Devin Haney, talking about skipping 140 pounds, stuff like that. Yeah,
Dalton Smith.
except he said he would fight Dalton Smith. And not that a fighter like Keyshawn really gives two shits about this aspect of it, but just as an interesting narrative point of it all, he winds up doing the belt to ass thing to Andy Cruz at ringside, and that puts you in the line of fire for the social media assholes to light you up, and not just assholes, for boxing fans who aren't assholes to light you up and to have fun and all that. But someone like Keyshawn is not thinking about that, but he has to deliver. He hasn't just predicted he's going to knock Jim. Look, between predicting he's going to knock Jamaine Ortiz out, who's never been knocked out, who
Yep.
actually has better professional experience, not amateur experience, but better professional experience than Keyshawn
24
Davis,
rounds with Lomachenko and Teo.
and very competitive in
Mm-hmm.
24 rounds with Lomachenko and Teo. Keyshawn said, I'm better than both of them, right? But he doesn't have the accomplishments or the decorated professional career that those two've had. So between guaranteeing a knockout in his first fight against a legit in his prime fighter with good feet, good athleticism in Ortiz, between getting back his get back verbally at Andy Cruz, who would always call him his son, and he took pleasure in seeing him lose ringside. And to Keyshawn's credit, he always questioned whether Andy Cruz would really transition to be the level of pro he was in the amateurs. That opinion's checked out. And then between blowing weight in his hometown against De Los Santos, there's a fair bit of pressure on him to deliver. And I think he can. I think he can. But I favor Keyshawn because I think he's the better puncher. I think that they're both athletic fighters, but the power is in his advantage. And I think at long range, he's a little bit better, but it's at mid to long range. He's a little bit better when they're at range, but how often will Ortiz even be at long range in terms of punching range? How much will he be darting in and out and turning and turning and turning and using those feet all night? And Keyshawn is gets menacing in there, but also frustrated. He sometimes gets frustrated. Albright, the fight, he got frustrated in spots. Miguel Medueno, he was frustrated by not well. He did a great job being physical with a heavy-handed Mexican fighter. But what I'm saying is, I could see Ortiz's constant movement making him get real physical in the clinch, and that could work good for him. Out muscling him on the inside with the posts, as my man Tim Bradley says, the post in the clinch. And out muscling him, but I could also see him getting frustrated by a guy who's making him pick his feet up more than any other fighter has made him pick his feet up. And Albright made him pick his feet up sometimes, and he had long arms like Keyshawn, and that was his most competitive fight on the scorecards.
Correct. I think for Keyshawn, I mean, he has to get this fight to a place where he could work off of, framing his opponent, posting his opponent. Because when he backs these guys up and he's posting them and he's framing them and he's getting out the combinations and he's sharpshooting and things like that, that's when he's the most dangerous. I don't think he's gonna have a ton of those opportunities early on, just because Ortiz is so well
not going to be there
with his feet and so experienced. But this is where it goes back to Jamaine Ortiz's offensive versatility or lack thereof. It gets a bit repetitive. He circles the ring. He exits the same way. He's gonna need to do something different in this fight if he wants to get the nod and finally get over that hump in his career. Personally, I don't think he will. I think he's gonna be who he is. And I think that's why. That's probably what Keyshawn Davis, because I know he probably he's watched him fight. He went back and watched some film. I'm sure he's seeing the same thing I'm seeing. That for all the great things that Ortiz does do circling the ring and boxing, it gets very repetitive. So it becomes a matter of, okay, can I get him at the range I want him, early in the fight, or not let the fight pass me by.
Yeah, and this is his first fight with a new team. I like that young trainers are getting an opportunity, like we talked about in the NFL and the NBA. It's usually about who's the hot new coordinator, who's the hot new young coach, whereas in boxing, it's the same kind of 5 or 6 names every time a fighter's open to working with someone new. But no Bomac in camp. Bomac is an excellent coach in the corner. We'll see how that works out. And I think, Ortiz, if he could frustrate him with his feet, he could take some shots once Davis starts maybe loading up, starts looking for a shot. He could catch it. He has a decent left hook, Jamaine Ortiz. He switches stances. He's a good fighter. But I think Keyshawn is, like I said earlier, he's a little bit better at long range, and he's better at close range, not just being physical in the clinch. He's a harder body puncher. He's an excellent body puncher, too. That's where he's knocked Baranchyk out. He has good body shots. Holding his own with a heavy-handed Mexican like Medueno on the inside shows you he could fight on the inside. And I think there's a little bit more sophistication to his style. Jamaine Ortiz has those quick hands, those quick feet, good movement, but I think Keyshawn is a little bit more the accurate counterpuncher, a little bit more the guy who places the professional shots. And again, the firepower edge leans his way. So that's why ultimately I'm giving Keyshawn the win here. But it's like, he better deliver because he's put a lot of pressure to deliver between everything I said earlier.
Yeah, and just to add on to what you said earlier about things that have happened to him over the last year or so. Ryan Murataya just became world champion, and that was a fight that was talked about. And he had that whole interview where he said, "Well, I'm not gonna fight Ryan Murataya because that's an extra belt, it's an extra sanctioning fee, the IBF." So there's a lot of reasons to think, Sean, that Keyshawn Davis' mentality isn't in the greatest place. Even though God bless him, he said he's found God and he's more dialed in, but we don't really know if she get under them lights. And I'm favoring him too, mainly because I just don't believe that Jamaine Ortiz has the offensive versatility to deal with him for 12 rounds.
Maybe you can frustrate him and win
Yeah.
that way, just boxing and then picking his shot here and there, doing enough to win the fight. Keyshawn has a hell of a right hand, though. That's a hell of a weapon he's got. He's got a sharp, good, powerful right hand.
And if Jamaine Ortiz, if he is, let's just say hypothetically, if he is to fight out of that southpaw stance for extended periods of time, we know that the straight right hand is the southpaw killer. So I'm intrigued to see which stance does Jamaine Ortiz come out in. Does he go orthodox or does he go southpaw, or does he do a lot of switching? Because I remember Sean, was it 5 years ago, he fought on the Edgar Berlanga Damon Nicholson undercard. I was there against against one of the Ordono brothers, and he was doing a lot of switching, overly switching, over maneuvering himself into a position to get countered, and Adorno caught him. So maybe if he comes out southpaw and he feels like it's not working, maybe he does a lot of switching, and he might get caught that way. I mean, fighters have patterns.
Yeah, credit to Murataya, man, because that was one where I definitely was gonna pick Davis head to head, and now Murataya makes me take a big second thought about that based on how he looked last Saturday.
I was hypercritical of Murataya when he fought Zolani Ndengeni and Tevin Farmer, but
Right, right.
that experience gave him what he needed for a fight like Andy Cruz. And I was really impressed with how he was able to how quick he was able to get to Andy Cruz, because I thought Andy Cruz would at least in the first 6 rounds bank 4 of the 6 rounds.
Right.
But second, third round, he was right where he wanted to be. Being that ring general and just fighting the way he wanted to fight, imposing his will in the fight early. So I'm impressed by Raymond, and I'm looking forward to hopefully him fighting one of these big names.
I would say by the last minute of the first round, he had Cruz. He was already pinning Cruz against the ropes. But to finish on that, it's that I remember I talked to Keyshawn last year heading into, I believe, the Baranchek fight. It was the weekend of Benavidez Morel, and I said, don't you want to beat Cruz because, to get some vengeance back in the gold medal from the gold medal round, kind of like Miguel Cotto knocked out Muhammad Abdullayev on an HBO card. Abdullayev had beaten Cotto. Cotto sold out the Garden, beating a guy who I think may have knocked him out of the Olympics, and he got his get back. So showed him what it is in the pros. And I get Keyshawn's point. This guy called me his son, and he built his name as a professional off of what he did to me as an amateur. But that could have been you. That could have been you who handled that at 135,
Can't overly celebrate a guy losing if you want the one to beat him. He's still a 4 on you, whether you like it or not.
Right. I do think Keyshawn would have. I always pick Keyshawn to have won that fight as professionals, but I don't think it'll ever happen. So let's see if he gets the job done against Jamaine Ortiz. Sounds like we're both favoring him to do so. But
Points,
no.
Points. Keyshawn on points or Keyshawn by stoppage?
I don't know. I'm still feeling my way through 2026. I can't call that, but we'll see. We'll see. I would like to see Ortiz let him hang all the way to the ground on this one and risk getting stopped if it means putting himself in real position to win the fight and not just survive if Davis gains control of the fight.
You know what he needs to do, Sean? Because we were ringside for this fight. Jermaine Ortiz needs to channel his inner Shane Mosley Jr. Because when Shane Mosley Jr. fought Jesus Ramos, Ramos was stronger. Yeah, Ramos was a better fighter, more physically built for that weight class. But Shane Mosley let him hang, so he couldn't really be upset with the effort. We want to see that kind of effort, and if it's good enough, we'll see. Let the chips fall they may.